Okay, so in top of page 5, one of the things I just want to note, and this is a little bit of a, I don't know, an aside, I guess. It's not exactly a common requirement. If you need to make a window where you're not just cutting through the wall for your window, if you need to do something to the wall itself, have a look at the screenshot at the top of page 5. If you guys know Le Corbusier's church over in France, the concrete one that's got the recessed windows, ranchant, however you say it in French. The windows do this sort of thing. So if I were to hop onto Google here, so if we look inside the building, right, Corbusier put in all these windows that were recessed, and they made these, they beveled the openings. Of course, that was to allow better diffusion of light into the building. Now, if you need to do something like that with your window, you can't just use the window as you get it. So in this window here, now I'll just delete the little bit of the frame that we did. When you use the window template, you get built into it the opening object. So the thing that is cutting this hole right here is an opening object which you can find on the Create tab. There it is right there. So when you create a new window or door, Revit already has that opening in there, and that cuts right through the wall regardless of how thick it is. In tonight's share out folder, we have, so go have a look at it, it's called Splayed Opening RFA. I'm just going to download it here. And so what is different about this file is that there are no openings in it. There's 2 voids. So when you use a void form in your family, so here, let me illustrate. Got an extrusion, create an extrusion, draw it, done. There's my extrusion. Now, if I draw a void from the drop down here, if that void is in the same volume as a solid, it cuts it. Now you can have voids cut the geometry that you build, or you can have a void that cuts the wall that you insert it into. So what we've got here are 2 voids, one of them that's a blend. So there's the inside shape and there's the outside shape right there. That blend cuts the wall that we would insert this window family into. And so likewise here, if I use the Cut Geometry tool on the Modify tab, I can ask this void to cut the wall that I insert this window into if I were to use it in the project. Now if you need to do this, you must delete the opening object first that's in the template. And as you can see, that was a pretty straightforward process. So in this family, I've got one void that cuts from front to back for the window itself, and then I've got another void which cuts the beveled opening in the front. So that's just an aside, just in case you ever run into that situation, you need to do it in the future.
So you need to make the shape first and then cut the wall?
So what would have happened is that you would have seen this first. So before the voids cut anything, they'd look like this. You just see a couple of orange things sitting here, right? Mm-hmm. So let me go to wireframe. So you'd have those 2 voids sitting there, one that goes from front to back, that's an extrusion, that's the one in the middle, and then one on the outside, that's a blend. And so once the voids are made, you use the Cut Geometry tool and say, Mr. Void, please cut this wall. Mr. Void, please cut this wall. So 2 voids, so I had to use the cut geometry tool twice for both of them.
How we can draw the first shape, the one that has angle?
Like this? Oh, it's a blend. Has anybody here not done a blend before? Okay, so maybe what we can do is, we did the sweep last week. The blend is like an extrusion. So let me do a blend and plan. So if you do a blend, over a linear distance, you transform between 2 shapes. So here at the bottom, I'll do a square. And then over the space of 1 foot, and you can change what the space is, so I'll make it 4 feet. First end is at the bottom, and the second end is up towards us a little bit. So when I switch to the top, which is 4 feet away from the square, I can make it a circle. So now Revit, over a 4-foot linear distance, is going to transform this square into a circle. So when we look at it in 3D, that is what you get. So that's a blend. So what we did in the case of the window is we had 2 shapes. Let me go back to plan here. So we just simply had 1 rectangle inside of another rectangle, but it was a void form. So you can see here, you know, based on the distance between the 2 shapes, that's what alters it. So if you're doing like a heritage style column, craftsman style column on the front of a house, you know, this blend tool will be perfect for making that sort of elongated square pyramid shape. Okay, so getting organized in 3 dimensions, you create the reference planes, you name them, and then you add dimensions like we've been doing so we can stretch them. So for things like the exterior elevation here, you can see I've got reference planes here at the inside of the opening and at the edge of the bevel, and this dimension is snapped to these 2 reference planes. So as the reference planes move around, so do the sketch lines inside the void. So we're going to be doing lots of that tonight. Okay, so back in the Family Editor, page 4. So we've talked about family category. That's this guy right here. So if I want to change this to a different category, I could. If I want to make this a door, I could. Now, what's probably more important is the stuff that we see on the Create tab here. Our modeling tools, and also tools for if you want to put 3D text into your family, and then the reference plane and the set work plane tools. So these are kind of the main tools that you use. And then this one right here, family types, what this is meant to do, it's kind of like a parameter editor. Family types is like a parameter editor. It allows you to rename your parameters. So here I've got a dimension, it's called, you know, that's the name of the dimension, and I can edit the name of the dimension. So if I spell a parameter wrong, like length or width or depth, if I spell it wrong, I can go into family types and I can rename the parameter, and I can change its numerical value. So if I want to make a window longer or taller or what have you, you do it in family types. And the reason it's called family types is because the folks who developed Revit think that you will be able in your mind to imagine all the different door and window sizes that you're going to use in all the projects you haven't designed yet, and you will create them here. You will create new family types, right? So here I could make a 3040 window with this button. I could make a bunch of different window sizes and save it in with my family before you folks used it in your project. So I really wish they didn't call it family types. I wish they called it the parameter editor, because that's really what we use it for more than anything else. So on the Create tab, this is our geometry building. On the Insert tab, we could bring in geometry from another program. We did that last week in the In-Place family. On the Annotate tab, this is where we're going to put in our dimensions that we will make parametric. So here you can see we've got a regular dimension that we added a name to it. We labeled it, as Revit would say, and now it's become a parameter that someone can see in a project. The other big deal on the Annotate tab are these symbolic lines. So folks, these are the 2D lines that we use in our families. So in the case of a door, the swing and the leaf, symbolic lines. So instead of drawing them with 3D lines in plan, we show them as 2D lines. Okay, so we've already talked about the set work plane command on the Create tab. So I'm going to skip the rest of page 4, and we're going to go on to page 6. Now, if you've got the window template open, just go into a plan view, and I'm going to get you to put in a dimension. Or actually, click on one of the dimensions that you see in the view. So looking at the top of page 6, instance and reporting length parameters. Now, a dimension is a length parameter, and it can be instance-based. Now, what does that mean? It means any parameter that's instance-based means that when you click in this object, when you use it in the family, you can change this value without having to go into the Edit Type dialog box. So an instance parameter is one that's right there when you hit the Properties palette. Now, if you go into Family Types, and you go and find one of these parameters here and you edit it. Now, you can see here that there is an option for a reporting parameter. Now, what does that mean? It means that this dimension could report back something to the family, some information to the family from the project to help the family do something. Now, let me give you an exact example. Ladies and gentlemen, grab the dimension command, the aligned dimension command, and we're going to put a dimension from the outside face of the wall to the inside face of the wall. So you'll have to use the tab key to help you do this. Hover over the outside face, tab once and click it. Inside face, tab once and click it, and put that dimension off to the side. What we're going to do is we're going to make a parameter for this dimension and make it a reporting parameter. What will it do? It'll tell this window family about the thickness of the wall that it's inserted into. So this wall we got right now, it's a foot thick, but it could be in a wall that's 3 5/8 with 1/2-inch gypsum board on either side. Now, what we can do is we can use that reporting parameter to help us make a frame that would go around a door, that would get the size of the wall that it's in, and build that door frame to those specifications. So here, once you've got that dimension selected, just hit escape a couple times, go back and select that dimension and hit the new parameter button up at the top of the screen. And we are going to call this wall thickness. And it's going to be an instance parameter, and it's going to be a reporting parameter. So now this dimension can tell this window how thick the wall is, and we can do something with that information. So maybe we'd like to make a door frame that's always 2/3 of the thickness of the wall, or always 3/4 of the thickness of the wall. So now this parameter can report back to our family about that information. So that's what reporting parameters do. Now, we've already talked about the 3 levels of detail: coarse, medium, and fine. And I showed you with the visibility settings. So every piece of geometry that we put into our family. So again, I just made a quick extension here. Extrusion, rather. So if you've got any geometry that you've modeled, just go to visibility settings. So again, if you model a doorknob, you can have it so that it hides itself until the fine level of detail is chosen in the view that you're looking at this family. So if that's the case, this thing will not appear until in the project someone sets a level of detail to fine. Bottom of page 6. Now, when I'm building stuff, we've got these different tools, the blend, sweep, revolve, and so on. If I can, I will always use extrusions. They are the easiest kinds of geometry to build, and for doors and windows, pretty much everything you really need to build for a set of working drawings can be done with extrusions. So they're just way easier to manage. Now if we go over to page 7, sweeps, you folks should be able to understand why we might need a sweep. Think of the kind of geometries that we can't build with an extrusion. Think of a cornice or a piece of trim that you might put around the top of a piece of furniture that's, you know, like a cornice around the edge of the ceiling. You can't build that with an extrusion because it's got to, you know, follow a path. So sweeps are perfect for that. We've seen blends, we've seen what they can do. They're good for doing like a column pedestal. A revolve is for something like a doorknob. And a swept blend, one of the greatest applications for those that I've seen is I've got a little family that I use for doing garden walls. So if you've got a wall that starts at one height and as it turns, it goes up to a taller height, right? So it's shorter at 0 degrees, taller at 90 degrees. So it creates actually a helical shape on the top of the wall. I've got a generic model family that's a swept blend. So let me just open that up here so we can see. If any of you guys want these families, I'm quite happy to give them to you so you can check them out. So here you go, you've got a swept blend. So at one end, this is what it looks like. It's kind of like a sweep, right? So you've got your path, but you've got two profile planes. Now, when we did the sweep with the desk last week, we only had one profile plane. We drew those 3 circles for the bars that went around the edge of the desk. So here we've got 2 profile planes. So once we're done with the path, you have to draw one profile. There it is there, that rectangle. And then you have to draw the other at the other end. So we just got 2 rectangles, one's higher than the other. So I've actually got 2 sweeps here. I've got one for the wall itself and one for the top cap. So I've got a pair of families, one that does the curve, and here I can specify the amount of curvature. So here it's 45 degrees. If I want, I can make it 90. And then I've got another family that's the straight bits for this. So if any of you want this, just email me and I can send it over your way. So that's a swept blend. Okay, page 7, family types. So this is the dialog box that we were looking at earlier. I'm not going to go into that dialog again just now. Let's flip over the page to page 8. Now these are the kinds of parameters that you can build in a family. So dimensions, as soon as you make a dimension, so it's got a label on it, dimensions are length parameters. And so these are the different kinds of stuff that you have in a family. And yeah, we'll get into those as we go. Subcategories. Now, I think I've talked about these before. If you go to the Manage tab and you go to Object Styles. So in this dialog box here, we're making a window family. If we wanted to make a subcategory called Trim, you'd put your cursor on the Windows category and then hit New. And now we can add a Trim subcategory. Now why would you do this? Well, for 2 reasons. Having a Trim subcategory means that you can turn that subcategory off in your project. You folks know that when you expand a category in Revit, it lists all the different subcategories and you can turn them off as you so desire. You can also adjust the line weights separately because you can see they've got their own projection and cut line weight. So that's the 2 reasons that we usually use subcategories for. And you can also give it its own separate material. So those 3 reasons, line weights, on and off capability, and separate materiality, are the reasons we create those subcategories. And in your family, you do it in the Object Styles dialog box. So Manage, Object Styles. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go through the process of working with the splayed window family. and we are going to build a frame within it. So if you've got that splayed window family, we're going to open it up and we'll do it in 3D here. Okay, bottom of page 8, step 1. Open the exterior elevation view and use Create, Set. So we're setting our working plane, which is going to be choosing where this sweep starts from, in which plane this sweep flies around the edge of our window opening. Okay, and it says use the face of window frame reference plane. There we go. So now this next bit of geometry is going to be starting from this reference plane. Step 2. Choose Create, Extrusion, and use the Pick tool from the Draw panel. Pick. Choose Lock on the options bar, right here, and pick the inner edge of the opening. Now, you're not going to be able to pick the inside edge of this geometry. So you can see I can see an edge to the window, but I can't grab it with the tab key. So we are going to have to content ourselves with locking to the reference planes, which is fine. So I've got the lock option enabled, so I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I've got those 4 sketch lines there, pink sketch lines. And as you can imagine, we're going to need to clean that up. So we use the trim command, TR, and fillet all 4 corners together. So we are on to page 9, offset. Use the offset command and set the offset value to 2 inches. So there's offset here on the ribbon. And we're going to make our offset value 2 inches. 2 inches. Now it says click on white space in the drawing area to get the cursor out of the value box. Now I'll show you why. So the reason I've clicked in white space here is so that when I go and pass my cursor over one of my sketch lines, and notice that I'm offsetting it towards the inside. Now, because my cursor is not flashing up in this box, I can hover, tab, click. Now you'll see in the notes here that we have to add dimensions from the reference planes back to these sketch lines. So here we go. Once this is done, hit escape a couple times and you'll be out of the dimension command. Now we need to label these dimensions to make them parametric. So hold down the control key and pick all 4. There we go. So now we need to add labels to these dimensions so that they will be parametric. So to do that, up on the ribbon, hit this wee little button here. Now It's kind of sad. Earlier versions of Revit actually had a text description of what this button does, and now they haven't. It's just kind of, you know, what does this button do? Oh, it creates a parameter. Oh, okay. Anyway, so the notes say this is going to be frame width. This is step 4. So now all 4 of those dimensions are sharing that same parameter. That's what we want to happen.
So we just give it the name. Didn't pick the instance or the name.
Nope, they are type parameters. So you can see here there's a checkbox if I wanted to change that. Now they're instance parameters, now they're not. And we could go into family type straight away. And we could do it here. So there's the new value I just created. I could click on it and edit it and make it an instance reporting value, which would make no sense. So I'll just leave it as a type parameter. Now, step 5. In the properties palette, change the subcategory of the extrusion to frame mullion. So over here, subcategory. You can see it here? Switch it to frame mullion. There it is. Now, in step 6, I'm going to skip that because we've already talked about subcategories. And we're going to move on to step 8. Now, step 8, in the properties palette, click the thin, wide visibility graphics button. That's this one right here. In this dialog box, uncheck Fine, so that this extrusion will not appear in the project if the level of detail in the project is set to Fine. In any given view in the project, if the level of detail of that view switches to Fine, this geometry will not appear. Hit OK. Alright, so we hit a green check mark now to finish. And when we look at it in plan, our window frame is going the wrong way. It's shooting outwards out of the wall, so we're going to fix that now. Now what we need to do is add another reference plane. So I'm going back to the plan view, the ref level floor plan view, double click on it. And on the Create tab, I am grabbing the reference plane tool, not the reference line, reference plane. This is step 11. Add a new reference plane within and parallel to the wall, about 2 inches inboard from the interior side of the wall, like so. Again, just make sure it's horizontal, and that's all you need to worry about. Step 12, dimension from the face of window reference plane to the reference plane you just created. So, dimension from here, this is our face of window frame, to this reference plane we just created. There it is. Hit escape twice to get us out of the dimension command. And now select the dimension and give it the label frame depth. So to do that, again, we got to hit this little unnamed button up here. And we're calling it frame depth. Now, you can see it's kind of a random value. Another thing you can notice here is that the scale of the view is such that our dimensions are kind of big. So I'm going to change the scale of the view to something smaller, just so that the relative text size to the geometry is smaller. Now if you've got a parameter here, there's 2 ways that we could change the value of frame depth. I want to change it to 4 inches. I can go into family types and do it there. So there it is there, frame depth. I can go in and make this 4 inches. Or you can just simply click once, click twice, and edit it here. So now we have changed the value of frame depth and we've moved these 2 reference planes closer together. So now I can grab my extrusion for the window frame, and just like you take a sock and turn it inside out, I can flip it past itself and bring it back to that reference plane, release, and lock it. So that is the bottom of page 9. So let's go over to page 10. Top of page 10, step 14. Now, if you guys have ever used a window in a project and you've noticed how the materials, when it hits the window, wrap and go in and terminate against the window frame, so sometimes the gypsum board on the inside will turn and hit the frame. To enable that in this window, it's a property of reference planes. So when you select a reference plane in a window or door family, you will see this wall closure. So that's what these reference planes do. So when you enable that feature, you can only have 2 reference planes in a door or window that are parallel to the wall. One will allow the finishes from the inside to turn the corner. On the outside, that will allow my exterior finishes to come in, turn the corner, and wrap back to that reference plane. Step 15. We need to add a reference plane for the glass. In the plan view, add another reference plane parallel to the wall, just below the reference plane for the center of the wall. So that's this one here. There's a reference plane that is in this template for the center of the wall. So we're going to go back to Create and Reference Plane, and we're going to draw another one here just across like so. Put a dimension, step 16. Oh, we gotta name it. Face of glass. So that's step 15. Face of glass. Face of glass. There we go. Step 16. Put a dimension between the face of window frame and this new one that we've created. So that means we're doing a dimension from here at the outside edge of our frame to the glass, like that. So we need to give this a label, so we need to hit escape a couple times, select our dimension here, and give it a label. So it's calling it face of frame to face of glass. Face of frame to face of glass. So again, that's a pretty ugly dimension, so I'm going to click on it once, click on it again, and just make its value 1 inch. Oh, okay, now I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make it 2 inches just so I can see it. Well, once, twice, oh, come on, once, twice, 2 inches. Well, I made it 2 inches because I don't want the 2 reference planes to overlap right now. I want to see them separated. It doesn't matter. It could be 1 inch, but I just want to separate them visually for now. Where am I? Go to the exterior elevation view. Use Create and then Set. And switch to the face of glass. I just realized when I record this, I have a little window of my face here in the bottom corner, and I realize that when so you guys get a nice view of the notes from the back side while you're watching it in the future. All right, so now we do the next extrusion, step 17. Step 18, create extrusion, and on the properties palette set the subcategory to glass and set the extrusion end to -1 inch. Now, why are we doing that? So when you pick a plane in a view to work from, what Revit does is it extrudes from that plane towards you. That's a positive value. So really what we want our glasses to go the other way. That's why we've chosen -1 inch. So now we use the pick tool and we pick the inner edge of our frame here and here and here and here, and we're done. So when we look at it in 3D now, View tab, Default 3D, we should see this. So now we've got parameters that will allow us to control where this window sits within the depth of the wall, and we have a parameter that allows us to control how far the glass sits back from the face of the frame. So I can go into family types and I can find my face of frame to face of glass, and I can make that 1 inch, and you'll see the glass in the background there. It's going to jump forwards towards the front. So you've got those controls now. Now that may be more control than you need, but graphically, if you ever decide that you want to have a very thin or a very small, shallow setback for your glass, you can do so. Or if you want to create a little bit more of a shadow line, there's different ways that you can do it. You can set your window back farther into the wall and set your glass farther back inside the frame to create more of a shadow line. Now, the next set of steps on page 10 is to do the frame, which will be a sweep. Now, make sure when you click your green frame and you go up to visibility settings that it's not going to be showing up in the fine level of detail. So just give that a check one more time. You pick your frame and then go up to visibility settings. All right. Now. Yeah, uncheck fine. That's correct. Yep, just like that. Okay, switch to the 3D view, and there we go. And switch the display style on the view control bar to consistent colors. So there we are. This makes the view a little lighter. From the Insert tab, choose Load Family and get the Frame Profile Family and bring it in. So Insert, Load Family, and go find that Profile Family from our Session 5 folder. This one right here. Frame Profile. So that means you do this, Insert, Load Family, and it'll bring it in. So you won't see anything, but now that frame shape is in here. This is going to save us the step of drawing the profile ourselves. That's step 19. Okay, step 20. Choose, create, sweep. Now, when creating the sweeps, you need to get the path for the sweep created first. Now, what we're doing here is we're going to draw the path in using the Pick Path tool. And I'm going to draw it on the bottom edge of our window here. Pick the bottom edge of the window frame first, then the other 3 edges around the opening. So here we go, there's the first one. So you can see we get this green dashed square that gets created at the bottom of our window. So you want to be doing it on the side that has display visible on it, not the other side. And you're picking the outside edge of the window frame. Pick the bottom first, and then we're going to go around and pick the other 3 sides.
So you pick you select the Pick Path here.
Yep. Pick path, and then pick the bottom edge of the window. You'll see a green dashed square, and then go and pick the 3 other sides. Did you use a sweep or a swept blend?
Oh.
Yeah, you might have done a swept blend. So just cancel out and then do it again. Now, once you've got all 4 path edges defined, you can finish. And now we're going to, instead of drawing the profile ourselves like we did last week with the desk, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, we're going to find the family in here. Now, you'll also see its location in 3D. So if I was to finish now, this exact shape like you see here would be swept following this, you know, where the pink dot is, and follow that sweep around. That's not where we want it at all. So maybe what we need to do is rotate it. So I think if we rotate it 180 degrees, that'll do it. And that's what we want right there. So put in an angle of 180 degrees if needed. And then make sure that your profile looks like this. So it's on the inboard side of our window. The path is at the outside edge. If any of you need help, I'll try and get you sorted. So that's that. So we'll hit finish. And now what we're going to do, before we deselect this thing, is go to visibility settings. And so what we want to do is make sure that this geometry only appears at the fine level of detail. So we've got one extrusion, which appears at coarse and medium, and now this one that's got the extra bit of shape to it only appears at the fine level of detail. So that's one thing we have to do. Now in the notes it says we also need to put the subcategory for this into frame and mullion. And I think that was it. Now one little note here about material parameters. We're going to be doing a bunch more of this tonight. Right now, if you wanted to change the material of the window frame to something else, like a plastic vinyl or wood or aluminum, we'd have no way to do it. When we insert this window into our project, the frame would just be the default settings in the project. Now if you want to make it so somebody can change the look of your window frame in the project, you need to give it a material parameter. So when you select on a solid in your family, you can see that we have a material parameter for it here, and by category means it's just going to be the defaults for the project, no control. But again, if you click on one of the solids of your family, like the frame or the sweep, so we've got 2 of them in here. We've got the extrusion, which is the coarse and medium, and then the sweep, which is fine. So here, when you see material, this teeny little gray button here allows us to add a material parameter for these solids. Again, unnamed button. I really hate that they're taking all the labels off these buttons. So this guy right here will allow us to make a material parameter so that when this is loaded into a project, when someone goes to the type properties of this window, they can see the frame material parameter and they know, hey, I can go in here and I can make this aluminum now, or one of the other materials that I've got defined in my project. So it's a good idea with your doors and windows to have material parameters added to your geometry. Now, this was just the extrusion, right? I've still got the sweep. So there's my sweep, which I'm selecting now. Same thing. I've already got the material parameter created. So when I go to the material parameter from my sweep, I don't have to recreate the parameter. It's already there. I can just point Revit to it. There we go. All right. So that's that for this family. Let's go on to page 11. We're talking about nesting families now. So save this window family and then copy it into your share in folder whenever you get it done. It doesn't have to be at the end of the night. just by next week would be fine. Now, going to see if I can point my laptop camera over towards the board here. That ought to work. Not that you'll see too much of it, but whatever. What I want to talk about now is a situation where nesting families is used. Now, nesting means that you load one family into another family. I forgot my markers and there's none here. Okay, back to that. Okay, so I was working on a church project, Catholic church project a number of years ago, and one of the design motifs that we had around the sanctuary was 4 windows. 4 small windows arranged together in a square pattern. Now, we could have just built those windows, taken 4 windows and copied them around in one spot. But because we were going to have, well, I don't know, 2 or 3 dozen of these things, of this arrangement around the church, we decided that it made sense to nest this one little window into a blank window family, copy it around 4 times, and then save that as a family. So what kinds of things can you nest? Well, you can nest some chairs into a table family. So if you're doing a cafeteria layout and you're always going to have 4 or 5 chairs or 6 chairs around the table, import the chair family into the table family. So let me just show you what I mean. So here I'm going to open. So I'm just going to go into the furniture family here and I'm going to open up a table. So just a, here we go. No, not that one, coffee table. No. Well, I'll use the round table for now. This will work. Okay, so I got a round table. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import, I'm going to load a chair family into this table. So something like this, just a really straightforward chair. So now that chair family is here inside my table and I'll see it here. So there's that chair family I just loaded. So in plan, I'm just going to pull this chair in. So there's one, put it here, and then I'll just mirror it to the other side. So here I'm just mirroring onto 45 and now we've got 4 of them. So now we've got a table with 4 chairs already ready to go, and I'll just save as this to table with 4 chairs. So now if I use this in a project, I can drop this around, I can use it in my cafeterias, and it's way faster. I've got my chairs with the table, and it's good for, you know, figuring out your clearances, minimum clearances between each set of tables. So that's an excellent application of a nested family. Now this is actually even better than the alternative. Now if you're working on a new project, so let me just show you sort of how not to do it. Got a project open, and I've got my, let me just get that table here. And I'm going to load it into my project here that we're just working on. So there's my table. You guys ever used groups? So in Revit, you can group chairs together. Where did the chair go? Oh, I guess I'll just have to find it. Is it still open? I'm going to create a group here, folks. That's where I'm going with this. Okay. Now, this is, I would recommend that you don't do this because you're not doing yourself any favors. This is an easily done thing, and I see people doing it all the time. I've got in my project, I've got my table and my 4 chairs loaded, so I select them all and I group them. Now we talked about groups when we were doing those office layouts, right? I could grab this sucker and I could copy it around my project. How many projects am I adding to the Revit database here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the table. Oh, but wait, there's one more, the group itself, 6. So I'm creating 6 entries in my database. How many, like if I use my table of 4 chairs, so if I load this into my project here now, this is 1 object. This is 6. So if you have a really, fairly high number, if I was using like 20 or 30 of these things, there's no way I'd group them. I'd nest them just like I'd done here. So nesting is far superior to grouping for an application of this type. Now this will even be on your final exam, so it's kind of a giveaway. You'll remember that you're not supposed to group these things. You should use a nested family instead.
So, for the grouping, if I wanted to do one of them, is happening proposed. What about this one?
So what's...
For example, in the group, where we want to edit in group.
Yeah, you can do that. So if I wanted to edit this here to bring the chairs farther in, I'd edit the family. And so, oh, I know what it is. My table size is quite a bit smaller. But yeah, if I wanted to change where the chairs are located, I'd move them around in the family and load it back into the project and overwrite my group, or not my group, my family definition. So this would still be considered superior. So yes, obviously with your group you can quickly go in and move one of them out and finish, and then if you had other copies of this group kicking around, you edit one, you edit them all, right? That's what groups do. But doing this as a group is, yeah, you're far better off to use it as a nested family. The other thing that we do for nested families, like we're showing with this window here, maybe there isn't as good an example. We're going to be doing one here to do a louvered family. You know what, we're going to come back to the window because that's a piece of cake. Let's do the tough one. Let's do the black diamond before we do the green run. That's a great way to learn, isn't it? Do the hard stuff first, fall down and lose your skis. Perfect, let's do it. All right. Now, what we're going to look at here is a really good example of why we use nested families. Now this is actually for performance reasons. I'm just closing off all these files here. Now in our folder for tonight, I have a little family. It's called a louver blade. And all it is it's part of an exhaust grill that you'd see on the outside of a building. So something that's beside a big air handling unit for a building. So you got a big grill there and it blows a ton of air out into the back alley. And this is one of the blades that would be in that enclosure. Now if you're going to try and model this thing, you could try and model every single blade, copy that extrusion sideways in your family. Revit will actually tell you, as you're doing that, don't do that. And Revit will say, no, use a nested family instead. So we're going to walk you through that process now. So let's go to page 12. So we're going to open up this louver blade family. I'm going to do that right now. So open, and I'm going to go to the desktop. And so there is my louver blade. You'll find that in our folder for tonight. And this is what it looks like in 3D. It's just a little airfoil. So it's just a piece of aluminum, a blade. If you were to look at it from the sides, I've got some parameters here. So if you change this 3-inch value, it makes this whole square bigger, so the blade gets bigger. So right now these blades are 3 inches on the diagonal. And we're going to use this, and we're going to put this inside a housing. Now in our family for tonight, or in the session 5 folder, we also have the exterior louver rectangular, so I'm going to open that as well. So what we have here is we have the housing. So see, I've already built this. I've already got the frame for the louver and the blade built. That's easy. You folks could do that. So what we're going to do is show you the process of how you nest the blade into the opening and make it work. Okay, so we're going to go to the floor plan view here, and we're going to get started. So you have the louver blade open and the exterior louver rectangular open. So it says open the louver blade family, so I'm going to switch to that one, the louver blade family here. Open the louver blade family from tonight's folder. From the ribbon, choose load into project and close. So when I'm nesting this into another family, the reason that they added this feature and close is because I don't need to edit this thing anymore. I just need to get it into my other family and nest it, and then get it out of my interface altogether. Here, I'm just going to do that in front of the camera again. There you go. All right, here we go. I'm not going to save it. And now there it is. So there's my louver blade. I've got one copy of it sitting in here. So I hit escape a couple times. All right, step 3. The blade will be able to be placed inside the exterior louver family. Place it so that its center is just off the center of the reference plane, like so. So if you did it kind of like this, great. If not, just kind of move it so it's not sitting exactly where it's supposed to be. That is step 3. Everybody cool so far? Okay, step 4. Use the align tool and pick the reference plane in the center, this one here. Then choose the center of the louver blade. Now you'll see it here when I pass my cursor over it, we get a little blue line. See that? And lock it. Yep, so what it is, it looks like this. So you use the align tool, pick the reference plane in the center, and then you'll find a little blue line that appears as you pass your cursor right over the center of that louver blade. See that there? So that's your second click. Then you'll get a lock icon and lock it. Now, step 5. Add a dimension from the reference plane at the bottom of the frame to the bottom of the louver blade. So we're going to use a dimension right here from this reference plane at the bottom of the frame. So from the reference plane here, go up until you get to the bottom of the louver blade there, like so. Whatever value it is, it doesn't matter. This is step 5. Quit the dimension command. So hit escape twice and select the dimension you have just added. From the label menu at the top of the screen, choose the blade clear from end parameter. So this parameter has already been created. We could have done it. I'm just saving the work. So here you don't have to create a parameter, you just point this dimension to this parameter. So it's going to move the blade down to the bottom of the frame. So step 5, this ensures that the blade has proper clearance from the bottom of the frame that all these louvers are sitting into. Step 6, in the project browser, find the specialty equipment folder and expand it to show the louver blade family. Expand it completely and double click on the louver blade child entry. So that's the child, that's the parent. Click on the child entry, actually double click on the child entry, and it pops up this dialog box. Now, when you nest a family, if you want someone to be able to alter the parameters of a nested family, you have to link the parameters from the nested family, just like we're doing here, to the host. So the host is the frame. The nested family is the blade. So if we want to be able to adjust the thickness of the blade and the length of the blade once it's loaded into the project, we have to connect the nested family to the host so that the end user can control through and drill down and grab those nested families and change their settings. So to the far right are small buttons beside width, curve radius, and blade XY. Hit the little button and associate these parameters in the host with these 3 parameters in the family: blade width, blade curve radius, and blade XY. So let's start here with width. Go over to the little button, find blade width here, and hit OK. Curve radius here, hit the little gray button, find blade curve radius in the list, hit OK. Blade XY, same thing, blade XY. So what this does now is that if someone uses this louver family now, these parameters that I created here in my frame were made exclusively, yeah, they were made exclusively to control my nested family. I pre-made them just to save us some time. Now what does the width parameter do here? What it does is it ensures that the width of each one of these blades fits inside the opening and also pays attention to the width of the frame. So if the width of the frame is 2 inches, I subtract 2 inches off my opening on each side, so 4 inches, and that gets me this blade. So when we go into my family types, you can see here I've got some, see here, look at that, there's my blade width. I made this parameter here and I made a little formula. We'll be talking about formulas more. Take the opening width, 2 times my frame width, chop that off the length. That is what my nested blade's width shall be. So if somebody makes the opening wider, the blades get automatically wider. That's why we link those parameters together. So again, double click the louver blade, make sure you've got little equal signs here, here, and here. What about for the material parameter? Same thing. So we should see equals signs on those little gray buttons for all 4 of them. So now that that is done, we're going to array this thing. Step 7, 3/4 of the way down. Now we're going to array the blade. Click the louver blade and choose the array command from the ribbon. The array command is this one right here. Now, choose the last option on the options bar. That's this one right here. Really important. So after you start the array command, you must hit the last option here. So what we're going to do is we're going to purposely copy this blade up so it's off center like so. Now this will give us an opportunity to get this blade into the right place. So I'm just going to click off now. So we've just got 2 blades. We're going to have more in a second, but for now we've just got 2. Going to use the align command again. So now that I'm aligning, I go down and pick my center reference plane here, and then the middle of my blade, and lock it. We need another dimension again. And the dimension is going to be from the top reference plane. Make sure you don't pick the geometry, pick the reference plane. Not the geometry, the reference plane. Pick the reference plane first, and then come down and pick the top of the blade. And then find some white space to finish the dimension. So now we're going to hit escape a couple of times to get out of the dimension command. And like we did before, we're going to select that dimension we just created, and we're going to find from the list up here, blade clear from end. And that'll move this a second blade to the end of the frame. So now we're at step 9. It says, select one of the louver blades and choose the line connecting the two arrayed objects. That's this one here. So you can see it there, that little line. If you select it now. Oh, come on. Oh, that's weird. Click. Huh. Can you guys grab it? I had the tab selected for some reason. Okay, so folks, if you pick one of the blades, you should be able to pass your cursor right on it and select it. Now I can't here. I actually have to hit the tab key once, and then you can see that line becomes pickable, and now I can pick it. Now, up here on the options bar, you can see I've got a label here, and there's a label called number of blades, num blades, and if I click it, it's automatically going to array this so that now I've got multiple blades in this thing. And if we go look at it in 3D, you can see the blades are floating outside of our frame, and we need to get them down inside the frame. Now, if you don't have this, just wave at me and I'll come and get you sorted. So just remember, when you do this, let me just go back a step. If you've got the two blades at the end, just pick one of them. Put your cursor over that black line that you see in the side. Tab, click it. And from the label drop down, choose number of blades. And it should array all those blades. Now, the one thing you could screw up when you're doing this is that when you did the original array, is that you chose the second option instead of the last. And if you do that, you have to delete the array and start over again. Yeah?
I have extra, actually, like a line, but I have extra space between my two.
So when you're outside, is it not look quite like that? Okay. I'm going to have it interlude in our YouTube video. So pick on one of your blades there. Yeah, you can do it 3D. Okay, so click on. Yeah, so wait here for me. Oh yeah, it's not. Oh, you know why? Delete this dimension. Yeah, delete it. And then do the dimension command again. Do it from this reference command here. Yeah, down to the blade. Oh, to the top of it. Yep. Find some white space. No, you, nope, not from there. It's got to be from the reference command. Yep. The top of the blade. Yeah, now bring your cursor off to the side and mount it. There you go. Now escape a couple times. Pick it. There you go. Now you're in the right spot. Now, when you pick your arrayed object, you can pick it. Yeah, and now see the line on the side. Put your cursor on it. Yeah, click it, and then you'll be able to choose the label from the menu there. Perfect. That. Okay, you got it. All right. Looks like what I can see on your screens, most of you've got it figured out. So now what we need to do is bring those planes down inside the frame. So we're on to page 13. Go to the left elevation view. The blades are sitting outside the frame and we got to bring them down. We're going to use the align tool for that. So watch carefully here. I'm going to do it once, then you guys do it. So to do this, I grab the align command and I pick the reference plane at the top of the frame. That's my first click. Now my second click is a bit tricky. I have to make sure that I'm picking the top of one of my blades, and you'll see a little blue line telling you that you got it sorted. This is my second click. So it brings that blade down. Now Revit is kind of trying to go evenly, you know, from the elevation of this first one to the elevation of the last one. So I lock it. Now, again, we're using the align command. I pick my reference plane at the top here again, and now I pick the top of the last blade and lock it. So now my blades are brought downwards inside the frame. So now when we look at this thing in 3D, we can play with the width of the opening in family types. So I can go into family types here and I can make the opening height 4 feet and the width 6 feet. And what Revit does is it calculates the number of blades needed and calculates the new width of the opening, subtracts for the frame width on both sides, and alters the blade width value that we need for our nested blades to make them the right width. So that process we went through right now is an absolutely spot-on use of nested geometry. So this is why we nest these things, because if we're arraying them, yeah, this is the only way Revit will be happy with what you're doing. Now you might have found that to be a little tedious, I guess, but that's definitely the process that you want to follow if you're building geometry like this. Now this is a kind of a rare case. Now what we're going to do, now that we've done the double black diamond, we're going to go do the bunny run and work on the nested family, the windows. So let's go back to page 11. So now that you've done this, folks, save this and then share it into your, or copy it into your share in folder later, at a time that suits you. Okay, so get everything saved and then get yourself back down to the Revit desktop, and then we will continue. So back to page 11. So going back to the idea of that church window that's got 4 fixed lights arranged in a square.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
There is an arrow that says Revit save to backup the file when I wanted to save on file.
You can't save it into your share in folder. You got to copy it.
Yeah, I have a copy.
Okay, where did you save that file right now?
It says Revit save to backup the file before saving. Check the availability space.
Oh, you know why? You probably opened it directly from the share out folder.
I have the files, the copy of the files in my folder.
Okay, then probably don't have to worry about it. Just save it. I'll come back and look at that later. Okay, get yourself back down to the Revit desktop, folks, so you don't have any files open. With my university class right now, we're actually working on a social housing project right now in a local municipality. I'll just open this up for a moment here. This is, we're going to use prefabricated container homes from Taiwan, so steel containers. And they're going to have basically 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. We're going to have them so they're, each person has 2 containers, or a container and a half rather. So they're going to be all stacked side by each. So it's going to be similar to the project that was done down here on 502 Alexander, where they did container housing as social housing. So we're going to have 50 units of social housing. This is kind of, we're just getting started on this today. These are linked files. So we took we did up our container design, saved it as a file, and then linked it into this master where we're copying them all around, and then we're going to build the steel stairs and the walkways on the outside. So kind of an interesting way of getting things done in Revit by linking those files. Okay, so what we're going to do now here is we're going to start a brand new window. So go to the File menu, hover over New, and then choose Family. So this time we are going to do the window template. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when you get the window template, when you look at the exterior elevation, I have to do a zoom extents here, ZX. There's already an opening object here. Now we are going to nest in window families that already have their own opening objects within them. So we can delete the one that's here. Just in the exterior elevation, double click it, ZX, because for some reason the view is messed up. Window select and delete it. There. So if I turn on shading, SD, no opening. No problem. Now we're going to see why here. So what we're going to do now is we are going to open, File, Open, Family. And we're going to go to the Revit library and we are going to import the fixed window, the most basic window in the Revit library, Family. So in your library, go down to the Windows folder and find the fixed window family. File, hover over Open, hover until you get the menu that shows up, and then Family. Oh, how do I get rid of it? Window select an elevation, window select it, and then just delete on your keyboard. Alright, so File, hover over Open, go to Family, roll on down to Windows, open it, double click Fixed. So here's our basic of the basicest window. So we're going to load this into our project and close. Oh, that sucks. Okay, well, I'm going to go back to my exterior elevation. I was hoping it would stay in my exterior elevation and allow me to place the window, but no such luck. That happened to the rest of you? Yeah, okay. So go to your exterior elevation again, expand families, expand windows, expand fixed. Yep. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to delete all of them except the 24. So you can just right click, delete, right click, delete. I'm going to delete all of these other sizes. I only want the 24 by 24. Right clicking, deleting, until we're just left with the 2 foot by 2 foot window. Don't need any others. Now, to place this window into our view, we drag out into the drawing area and drop. That'll put a window out there. There it is. I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4 windows out, and I'm done. So this allowed us to have 4 windows for the price of 1. Now what we need to do is lock and align them into place. Now, but before we do that, these windows are 2 feet wide and 2 feet tall. You can see the height of our window template here is only 4 feet, and the width I think is only 3 feet. Not enough. I want to get these windows here so I've got some space in between them. So I'm going to make the height here 5 feet. And we can go into family types here and make the width 5 feet as well. So now you can see those reference planes have spaced themselves apart. It's going to give us a little bit of room here to put these windows into place. Now watch carefully here. Align command. So what we need to do is align the corners of these windows with the reference planes. So observe. I'm going to pick the left reference plane, then the left edge of a window, and lock it.
So you change the height dimension to 5 feet?
Yep, width and height. Width and height, 5 feet. In family types. Okay, so I've used the align command. I've picked the left edge reference plane and the left edge of the window, and I've locked it. Now I'm going to pick the top reference plane and the top edge of the window and lock it. So by doing this, I want you to pick the sides of the reference planes, sides of the windows, and lock them so that they're completely inside these reference planes, so you end up with what we see here. So your windows are all inside those reference planes and locked, aligned and locked to them. So pick a reference plane, pick an edge of the window, lock it. So bottom edges for the bottoms, top edges for the top, right edges for the right side, and left edges for the left side. Anyone need to see that done again? So the reason we did this is so now the width and height parameters in our host will drive the spacing between these windows. So if I go into family types now, and I make these both 6 feet, my window's all moved with it. That's the idea. Now, if your windows don't move like this, then you just need to redo the align command so that it does happen. Now the only thing that we have left to do here, see if I load this into a project now, you know, they'll have a width and height parameter for controlling the spacing of my fixed windows, but they won't be able to change the size of the fixed windows themselves. Let me prove it. Let us save this to my desktop. So, for light window. So there's my family. It's called 4 light window. I'm going to create a new architectural template here, and I'm just going to draw a wall. Again, don't worry about doing this yourself. Just follow on the screen here so I can prove the point. So I load this into my project now, and I can put it in this wall, and as promised, we get 4 windows every time we use this family. And if I go into the type properties of this thing, you can see I can change the height and width so it adjusts the spacing between them. However, where's the parameters to change the height and width of each one of these little windows? Can't see them. That's the thing with nested families. You can't see them unless you link their parameters. So if we go back now to our 4 light window family here, we're going to do it now. So we need to create them. Yeah, our example's in metric, but we could just kind of ape it in Imperial. So we're going to go into family types here, and we need to add a couple of new parameters. Now, you can put a dimension in your family, then select the dimension and go up to the drop-down menu at the top to add a parameter there, right? You can do it that way. You can add a label for a dimension on the fly. But you can also create a length parameter inside family types. So down at the bottom here, we got tools here to edit a parameter if it's spelled wrong or if you want to switch it from an instance to type. But if you want to create a new parameter from scratch, there's the button right there inside family types. So we want this to be called window height. And it's going to be a type parameter. And we want window height to be 2 feet. Now we're going to make a new parameter again, and we're going to call this window width. And it is also going to be 2 feet. There we go. Now that that is done, I can go and select one of these windows and go to its type properties. So select one of the windows in the view, go to type properties, and yes, 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 height. Go to the little gray button. Window height. You guys can see where this is going. Width. Go over to the little gray button. Window width. There we go. Okay. And you can see we get the little equal signs here as well. Okay. So now, when I load this into my project again and overwrite it, I go into the type properties for this. Aha! So now I can adjust the height of my nested windows. Linking parameters. So if you are nesting them, and that's why we create these extra parameters that do nothing inside the host. They simply connect the project to a linked family. That's all they're for. Okay. We actually, this is the earliest I've ever been done. Either you guys are totally brain dead from what I've done to you, or you're really smart. I'm going to go with the latter.
Because we fast forwarded the YouTube video that you're making and already watched it.
Yeah, maybe. Well, the good news is, of course, is that you have this for reference if any of you felt like this was too fast. So you'll be able to follow along in the notes and see this on YouTube now. Okay, so I'm going to end the stream, and we can take questions or continue on with the term assignment, so you could actually work on the term assignment, or if you want any other, if you've got any other questions about the term assignment, we can deal with those now as well.